Question 1. The performance metrics show a significant slowdown in the electronic data processing system during peak hours, impacting downstream reporting accuracy and timeliness. The IT department proposes a rapid deployment of a new, unvetted software patch that promises a substantial increase in processing speed, but it has not undergone the full security review or impact assessment typically required by EDPT guidelines. Option A. Halt the immediate deployment of the unvetted patch and initiate a formal risk assessment and impact analysis involving relevant stakeholders to identify the root cause of the performance issue and develop a compliant solution that addresses both speed and security requirements. Option B. Roll back to a previous, stable version of the system that does not exhibit performance issues, even if it means significantly reduced processing capacity and longer reporting times. Option C. Proceed with the immediate deployment of the software patch to address the critical performance issue, with a plan to conduct a post-deployment review to identify any unintended consequences. Option D. Implement the new software patch on a limited number of non-critical systems, first to gauge its performance and stability before a full rollout. The correct answer is A. Halt the immediate deployment of the unvetted patch and initiate a formal risk assessment and impact analysis involving relevant stakeholders to identify the root cause of the performance issue and develop a compliant solution that addresses both speed and security requirements. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between achieving operational efficiency and maintaining robust data security and integrity, which are paramount under EDPT regulations. The need to process a high volume of electronic data quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise compliance. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing demands. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, documented, and risk-based methodology for addressing the performance bottleneck. This aligns with EDPT's emphasis on controlled and auditable data processing environments. By conducting a thorough root cause analysis involving relevant stakeholders and implementing tested solutions, the organization demonstrates due diligence and adherence to principles of sound electronic data management. This proactive and structured response minimizes the risk of introducing errors, security vulnerabilities, or noncompliance with data handling protocols mandated by EDPT. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate performance gains without a comprehensive review of underlying processes or security implications would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such an approach risks violating EDPT requirements for data accuracy, completeness, and security. For instance, implementing a quick fix without proper testing could introduce data corruption, leading to inaccurate reporting and potential penalties. Ignoring security protocols during a rapid implementation could expose sensitive data to unauthorized access or breaches, a direct contravention of EDPT data protection mandates. Furthermore, bypassing established change management procedures, a common shortcut in high-pressure situations, undermines the audit trail and accountability required by EDPT, making it difficult to trace issues and demonstrate compliance. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the problem and its impact. This should be followed by identifying potential solutions, assessing each solution against EDPT requirements, including security, accuracy, and auditability, considering the associated risks, and then selecting the most compliant and effective option. Collaboration with IT security, compliance, and relevant business units is crucial throughout this process. A commitment to documentation and post-implementation review ensures ongoing adherence to EDPT standards. Question 2. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new, advanced electronic data processing system could significantly enhance operational efficiency and data security. However, the implementation timeline is aggressive, and there is pressure to go live quickly to realize the projected benefits. The firm must decide on the most appropriate implementation strategy to ensure compliance with all relevant data processing and security regulations. Option A. Implement the new system in phases, with each phase undergoing rigorous testing and validation before proceeding to the next, ensuring full compliance checks at each stage. Option B. Prioritize the cost-saving aspects of the new system and implement it with minimal upfront testing, relying on vendor support to rectify any compliance shortcomings after deployment. Option C. Adopt a partial implementation, focusing only on the most critical functions initially and deferring the integration of security and compliance features until a later, unspecified date. Option D. Deploy the new system immediately across all operations to maximize the speed of realizing efficiency gains, with post-implementation audits to address any compliance issues that arise. The correct answer is A. Implement the new system in phases, with each phase undergoing rigorous testing and validation before proceeding to the next, ensuring full compliance checks at each stage. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the potential benefits of adopting new electronic data processing (EDPT) technology against the inherent risks and the need for strict adherence to regulatory frameworks. The firm is considering a significant investment that could improve efficiency and data security, but the implementation process itself introduces vulnerabilities and demands careful oversight to ensure compliance. The challenge lies in navigating the complexities of technology adoption while upholding the integrity and security of client data, as mandated by relevant regulations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased implementation with robust testing and validation. This aligns with the principles of prudent risk management and regulatory compliance. By conducting thorough testing in a controlled environment before full deployment, the firm can identify and mitigate potential data processing errors or security breaches. This proactive stance ensures that the new EDP system meets operational requirements and, crucially, adheres to all applicable data protection and processing regulations, such as those governing the handling of sensitive financial information. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of regulatory noncompliance and protects client data from unauthorized access or corruption. An incorrect approach that involves immediate full-scale deployment without adequate testing is professionally unacceptable. This would constitute a significant regulatory failure, as it bypasses essential validation steps designed to prevent data processing errors and security vulnerabilities. Such an action could lead to breaches of data privacy regulations, resulting in substantial fines, reputational damage, and loss of client trust. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on cost savings without a comprehensive risk assessment, also fails to meet professional standards. This overlooks the regulatory imperative to implement secure and reliable EDP systems, potentially exposing the firm to significant operational and legal risks that outweigh any short-term financial gains. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the regulatory landscape governing electronic data processing. This includes identifying all relevant laws, guidelines, and industry best practices. The next step involves a comprehensive risk assessment of any proposed technological change, evaluating potential impacts on data integrity, security, and client privacy. Following this, a phased implementation strategy, incorporating rigorous testing and validation at each stage, should be developed. Continuous monitoring and auditing of the EDP system are also essential to ensure ongoing compliance and to adapt to evolving threats and regulatory requirements. Question 3. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a critical electronic data processing system requires an upgrade to comply with new data integrity and security regulations. Which of the following implementation approaches best mitigates the risks associated with this mandatory upgrade? Option A. Prioritize the upgrade of the core regulatory compliance modules while deferring testing of ancillary data processing functions. Option B. Immediately deploy the upgrade directly into the live production environment to ensure compliance by the regulatory deadline. Option C. Implement the upgrade in production and then conduct post-deployment testing to verify regulatory adherence. Option D. Conduct comprehensive user acceptance testing and a parallel run in a staging environment that mirrors production, followed by a carefully planned phased rollout to production. The correct answer is D. Conduct comprehensive user acceptance testing and a parallel run in a staging environment that mirrors production, followed by a carefully planned phased rollout to production. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in electronic data processing where a critical system upgrade is mandated by regulatory changes. A professional challenge lies in balancing the urgency of compliance with the inherent risks of deploying new technology in a live production environment. The firm must ensure that the upgrade not only meets the new regulatory requirements, but also maintains the integrity, security, and availability of its data processing systems, which are vital for its operations and client trust. Failure to do so could result in significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and operational disruption. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased implementation strategy that includes comprehensive testing in a controlled environment before full deployment. This aligns with best practices for IT system upgrades and regulatory expectations for robust risk management. Specifically, it demonstrates adherence to principles of due diligence and prudent operational management. By conducting thorough user acceptance testing, UAT, and parallel run testing, the firm can validate that the new system functions as intended, meets all regulatory mandates, and does not negatively impact existing operations. This proactive approach minimizes the risk of unforeseen issues and ensures a smoother transition, thereby safeguarding data, integrity, and system reliability, as required by general principles of good governance and IT security frameworks, often implicitly or explicitly referenced in regulatory guidance. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the upgrade directly into the production environment without adequate testing is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach disregards the fundamental principle of risk mitigation, exposing the firm to potential data corruption, system downtime, and security breaches. Such a failure could be seen as a violation of the duty of care owed to clients in the market, and a breach of regulatory requirements mandating sound operational and risk management practices. Deploying the upgrade without confirming it meets all specified regulatory requirements, even with testing, is also unacceptable. This indicates a lack of understanding or adherence to the specific mandates, leading to non-compliance. This could result in penalties and require costly remediation efforts. Focusing solely on meeting the new regulatory requirements while neglecting the potential impact on existing business processes and data integrity is another failure. A holistic approach is necessary. Systems must function effectively and securely in their entirety, not just in isolation to meet a new standard. This oversight can lead to operational inefficiencies and data inconsistencies, undermining the overall reliability of the electronic data processing. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a challenge should adopt a structured, risk-based approach. This involves 1. Understanding the precise regulatory requirements and their implications for the electronic data processing systems. 2. Conducting a thorough impact assessment of the proposed upgrade on all relevant systems, data, and business processes. 3. Developing a detailed implementation plan that prioritizes testing and validation in non-production environments. 4. Establishing clear rollback procedures in case of unforeseen issues during deployment. 5. Ensuring adequate training for personnel involved in the upgrade and ongoing system management. 6. Documenting all steps, decisions, and test results for audit and compliance purposes. This systematic process ensures that regulatory compliance is achieved without compromising operational stability and data security. Question 4. The risk matrix shows a critical vulnerability in the current data encryption protocol, leading to a high probability of unauthorized access and a significant impact on data confidentiality. The IT department has identified a more robust encryption algorithm that offers superior security but may introduce a slight performance overhead. Considering the need to maintain system availability and user productivity, which of the following implementation strategies best addresses this challenge? Option A. Deploy the new encryption algorithm across all systems simultaneously without prior user notification or extensive testing to ensure the security vulnerability is addressed as quickly as possible. Option B. Postpone the encryption upgrade indefinitely, citing the potential performance impact as a reason to prioritize current system stability over addressing the identified security risk. Option C. Immediately disable the current encryption protocol to eliminate any potential performance impact while the IT department researches alternative solutions. Option D. Implement the new encryption algorithm in phases, starting with non-critical systems, accompanied by comprehensive user training and a clearly defined rollback plan. Correct answer is D. Implement the new encryption algorithm in phases, starting with non-critical systems, accompanied by comprehensive user training and a clearly defined rollback plan. Explanation. The scenario presents a common implementation challenge in electronic data processing, balancing the need for robust security controls with the operational demands of system uptime and user accessibility. The risk matrix, a standard tool for identifying and prioritizing potential threats, highlights a critical vulnerability in the data encryption process. The challenge lies in selecting an appropriate remediation strategy that effectively mitigates the identified risk without introducing new, unacceptable operational disruptions or violating regulatory mandates. This requires a nuanced understanding of the technology, the business impact, and the relevant regulatory landscape. The correct approach prioritizes a phased implementation of a more secure encryption algorithm, coupled with comprehensive user training and robust rollback procedures. This strategy represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified vulnerability by upgrading to a stronger security measure. The phased rollout minimizes disruption to ongoing operations, allowing for testing and validation at each stage. Comprehensive user training ensures that the transition is smooth and that users understand any necessary changes in their workflow, thereby reducing the risk of errors or security breaches due to unfamiliarity. The inclusion of rollback procedures is a critical risk management component, providing a safety net in case unforeseen issues arise during implementation, ensuring business continuity. This approach aligns with the principles of prudent risk management and the regulatory expectation of maintaining data integrity and confidentiality while ensuring operational resilience. An incorrect approach that involves disabling the encryption entirely to improve performance fails to address the core security vulnerability identified in the risk matrix. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure, as it directly contravenes data protection laws and industry best practices that mandate the protection of sensitive electronic data. Such an action would expose the organization to severe data breach risks, leading to potential financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Another incorrect approach, which is to immediately deploy the new encryption without any user notification or testing, represents a failure in change management and operational risk assessment. While it attempts to address the security issue, it creates a high probability of system instability and user resistance, potentially leading to operational downtime and data integrity issues. This demonstrates a lack of foresight regarding the human and systemic impact of technological changes, which is a common pitfall in IT implementations, and can lead to indirect compliance failures if data becomes inaccessible or corrupted due to the rushed deployment. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a thorough understanding of the identified risk, its potential impact, and the regulatory context. This involves consulting the risk matrix, relevant policies, and applicable laws. The next step is to brainstorm and evaluate potential solutions, considering not only their technical efficacy, but also their operational, financial, and compliance implications. This evaluation should involve stakeholders from IT, security, operations, and legal/compliance departments. The chosen solution should then be subjected to rigorous testing and a well-defined implementation plan that includes communication, training, and contingency measures. Continuous monitoring and post-implementation review are also crucial to ensure the effectiveness of the implemented controls and to identify any emergent risks. Question 5. The assessment process reveals that a critical business function requires the processing of a large volume of sensitive client financial data. The current data storage solution lacks robust encryption for data at rest, and the transmission of this data to the processing environment is also not adequately secured. Management is concerned about the potential for data breaches and regulatory noncompliance, but also about the significant costs and time required to implement comprehensive security upgrades. What is the most appropriate approach to address this situation while adhering to electronic data processing best practices and regulatory frameworks? Option A. Transfer the sensitive client data to a less secure, but more readily accessible cloud storage solution to expedite processing, with a promise to enhance security later. Option B. Implement robust encryption for data at rest and in transit, coupled with strict access controls, before proceeding with the processing of sensitive client data. Option C. Rely on the existing internal network security measures to protect the data, assuming that no external threats will compromise the processing environment. Option D. Proceed with processing the data using the existing infrastructure, with a plan to address security vulnerabilities after the critical business function is completed. The correct answer is B. Implement robust encryption for data at rest and in transit, coupled with strict access controls, before proceeding with the processing of sensitive client data. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in electronic data processing, ensuring the integrity and security of sensitive client data while meeting regulatory compliance requirements. The scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for data access for a critical business function against the long-term risks of data exposure and the potential for regulatory breaches. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both effective and compliant. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data security and regulatory adherence. By implementing robust encryption protocols and access controls, the organization demonstrates a commitment to protecting client information, which is a fundamental ethical and regulatory obligation. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of data breaches, which can lead to significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of client trust. Adhering to established data protection frameworks ensures that the organization is meeting its legal and ethical duties. An incorrect approach that involves transferring unencrypted sensitive data to a less secure environment for processing fails to meet the fundamental requirements of data protection regulations. This action creates a significant vulnerability, exposing client information to unauthorized access and potential theft. Such a failure constitutes a direct breach of data privacy laws and ethical standards, as it demonstrates a disregard for the confidentiality and security of client data. Another incorrect approach, which involves delaying the implementation of necessary security measures due to perceived cost or time constraints, is also professionally unacceptable. Regulatory frameworks often mandate specific security standards that must be met regardless of operational pressures. Postponing these measures, especially when dealing with sensitive data, increases the likelihood of a security incident and subsequent regulatory noncompliance. This demonstrates poor risk management and a failure to uphold professional responsibilities. Finally, an approach that relies solely on the assumption that internal network security is sufficient without implementing specific data at rest and data-in-transit encryption for sensitive client information is inadequate. While internal network security is important, it does not negate the need for granular data protection measures. Sensitive data, even within a seemingly secure network, can be vulnerable to internal threats or sophisticated external attacks that bypass perimeter defenses. This oversight can lead to regulatory violations related to data safeguarding. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment, a clear understanding of applicable regulatory requirements, and a commitment to implementing security controls that are commensurate with the sensitivity of the data being processed. Professionals must proactively identify potential vulnerabilities, evaluate the impact of data breaches, and prioritize solutions that ensure both operational efficiency and robust data protection. Consulting with legal and compliance experts is crucial to ensure that all decisions align with current regulations and ethical best practices. Question 6. Stakeholder feedback indicates that a new electronic data processing system, intended to streamline client onboarding and improve data analytics, may have potential vulnerabilities in its data encryption protocols and access control mechanisms. The firm is eager to implement this system to reduce operational costs and enhance service delivery. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Dismiss the stakeholder feedback as preliminary concerns and proceed with the implementation, assuming the vendor has already ensured compliance. Option B. Prioritize the cost-saving aspects of the new system and implement it with minimal security checks, relying on general IT security policies. Option C. Proceed with the implementation of the new system immediately to capitalize on its cost-saving benefits and address any identified issues post-deployment. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive security and compliance audit of the new system, involving legal and compliance departments, to identify and mitigate any risks before full deployment. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive security and compliance audit of the new system, involving legal and compliance departments, to identify and mitigate any risks before full deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a firm's desire to leverage new technology for efficiency and the paramount duty to protect client data and maintain regulatory compliance. The EDPT electronic data processing test context implies a focus on the secure and ethical handling of electronic information within a regulated financial environment. The core dilemma lies in balancing innovation with the strict requirements of data privacy and integrity, particularly when stakeholder feedback highlights potential vulnerabilities. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, risk-based assessment before full implementation. This aligns with regulatory frameworks that mandate robust data protection measures and a proactive approach to cybersecurity. Specifically, it adheres to principles of due diligence, client confidentiality, and the responsible deployment of technology. By involving legal and compliance teams, the firm ensures that any new system is evaluated against all relevant regulations, such as those governing data breach notification, data minimization, and secure storage. This systematic review minimizes the risk of regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and harm to clients. An incorrect approach that proceeds with implementation without adequate vetting fails to uphold the duty of care owed to clients and breaches regulatory obligations. Such an approach risks exposing sensitive client data to unauthorized access or misuse, leading to potential data breaches. This directly contravenes regulations that require firms to implement appropriate technical and organizational measures to protect personal data. Another incorrect approach that dismisses stakeholder feedback without investigation demonstrates a disregard for internal controls and risk management processes. This can lead to overlooking critical security flaws or compliance gaps, leaving the firm vulnerable to exploitation and regulatory sanctions. A third incorrect approach that focuses solely on the cost-saving aspect of the technology, ignoring its security and compliance implications, is ethically unsound and legally precarious. It prioritizes financial gain over client protection and regulatory adherence, a clear violation of professional responsibility. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with acknowledging and investigating all stakeholder feedback, especially concerning potential risks. This should be followed by a comprehensive risk assessment that considers technical, operational, legal, and ethical implications. Engaging relevant internal departments such as legal, compliance, and IT security is crucial. A phased implementation approach with pilot testing and ongoing monitoring is advisable. Finally, continuous training and awareness programs for staff on data processing and security best practices are essential to foster a culture of compliance and ethical conduct. Question 7. Market research demonstrates that a new electronic data processing test (EDPT) system offers significant potential for automating client data analysis and identifying investment opportunities with greater speed and efficiency. The firm is eager to adopt this technology to gain a competitive edge. However, the EDPT underlying algorithms have not been extensively vetted for potential biases, and its data security protocols are proprietary and not fully transparent. The firm's compliance department has raised concerns about the potential for data breaches and the ethical implications of relying on an unproven system for client-facing decisions. Which of the following approaches best balances the firm's desire for technological advancement with its ethical and regulatory obligations? Option A. Deploy the EDPT system for internal research purposes only, avoiding its use in direct client analysis or decision-making until its reliability and security are fully established and transparent. Option B. Implement the EDPT system immediately across all client portfolios to capitalize on its perceived efficiency gains, with a plan to address any issues that arise post-deployment. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive, independent audit of the EDPT system's algorithms for bias and security vulnerabilities, and perform rigorous testing on a limited, non-sensitive dataset before considering wider adoption. Option D. Rely on the vendor's assurances regarding the EDPT system's security and algorithmic integrity, proceeding with full implementation to remain competitive in the market. Correct answer is B. Implement the EDPT system immediately across all client portfolios to capitalize on its perceived efficiency gains, with a plan to address any issues that arise post-deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a firm's desire to leverage technological advancements for efficiency and the paramount duty to protect client data and maintain ethical standards. The EDPT, as a tool, can offer significant benefits, but its implementation requires careful consideration of data privacy, security, and potential biases. The professional must navigate the ethical tightrope of innovation versus responsibility. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, risk-based assessment before full deployment. This aligns with regulatory frameworks that mandate data protection, due diligence, and responsible technology adoption. Specifically, it reflects a commitment to understanding the EDPT capabilities and limitations in the context of client data, ensuring compliance with data privacy laws, e.g., GDPR if applicable to the jurisdiction, or equivalent local data protection regulations, and internal ethical guidelines. It demonstrates a proactive stance in identifying and mitigating potential risks, such as data breaches, algorithmic bias, or unauthorized access, thereby safeguarding client interests and maintaining trust. An incorrect approach that involves immediate, widespread deployment without adequate testing or risk assessment fails to uphold professional responsibilities. This could lead to regulatory breaches related to data security and privacy, potentially resulting in significant fines and reputational damage. Such an approach disregards the principle of proportionality and due diligence, which are fundamental to responsible data processing. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on the cost-saving aspect of the EDPT without considering its impact on data integrity or client confidentiality, is ethically unsound. It prioritizes financial gain over client welfare and regulatory compliance, violating fiduciary duties and ethical codes of conduct. It suggests a lack of understanding of the potential downstream consequences of poorly implemented technology. A third incorrect approach, which involves using the EDPT for purposes beyond its validated capabilities or without proper oversight, introduces significant risks of errors, misinterpretations, and potential manipulation of data. This undermines the reliability of the firm's operations and could lead to incorrect advice or decisions, harming clients and violating professional standards of competence and care. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Identify the technology and its intended use. 2. Assess potential benefits and risks, considering data security, privacy, accuracy, and ethical implications. 3. Review relevant regulatory requirements and internal policies. 4. Conduct thorough testing and validation in a controlled environment. 5. Develop clear protocols for data handling, access, and oversight. 6. Implement the technology incrementally with ongoing monitoring and evaluation. 7. Ensure adequate training for personnel involved. 8. Maintain a clear audit trail of data processing activities. Question 8. The evaluation methodology shows a potential for significant performance enhancement through a novel data compression algorithm. However, implementing this algorithm requires direct access to and modification of core data processing modules, which are subject to strict EDPT regulations concerning data integrity and security. The professional responsible for this area discovers the algorithm independently and believes it could greatly benefit the organization's efficiency. Option A. Proceed with implementing the algorithm on a non-critical test system to gauge its performance, without formal documentation or approval, as it is only a test. Option B. Share the algorithm's details with external industry contacts to gather broader feedback on its potential, without informing internal management. Option C. Propose the algorithm to the relevant IT governance committee, outlining the potential benefits, risks, and a detailed plan for testing and phased implementation, seeking formal approval before any modifications are made. Option D. Immediately implement the new algorithm after a brief internal review with a trusted colleague, documenting the changes retrospectively. Correct answer is D. Immediately implement the new algorithm after a brief internal review with a trusted colleague, documenting the changes retrospectively. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a desire to improve system efficiency and the imperative to maintain data integrity and security, which are paramount in electronic data processing. The EDPT, as a regulatory framework, emphasizes robust data handling practices and the prevention of unauthorized access or modification. The core of the dilemma lies in balancing innovation with compliance. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, documented, and authorized process for any system modification. This aligns with EDPT principles that mandate clear audit trails, risk assessments, and adherence to established change management protocols. By seeking formal approval and conducting thorough testing, the professional demonstrates a commitment to responsible data management, ensuring that any changes do not compromise the system's integrity, security, or compliance with EDPT regulations. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of unintended consequences and maintains stakeholder trust. An incorrect approach that involves implementing the changes without proper authorization or testing would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses established EDPT controls designed to prevent data corruption, security breaches, or operational disruptions. Such an action could lead to severe penalties, including fines, reputational damage, and loss of operational capability, all of which are directly contrary to the objectives of the EDPT framework. Another incorrect approach, such as sharing the proposed changes with unauthorized colleagues for informal feedback, poses a risk of information leakage and could inadvertently lead to the implementation of flawed or insecure modifications. This violates the EDPT emphasis on controlled communication and access to sensitive system information. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the EDPT requirements regarding system changes, data security, and risk management. Professionals must first identify the potential impact of any proposed change on data integrity and security. They should then consult relevant internal policies and the EDPT framework to determine the appropriate procedures for proposing, evaluating, and implementing such changes. This typically involves documenting the proposed change, assessing its risks and benefits, obtaining formal approval from relevant stakeholders, and conducting comprehensive testing in a controlled environment before deployment. Question 9. Governance review demonstrates a critical data anomaly was identified during the final stages of testing for a new electronic data processing system, just days before its scheduled deployment. The anomaly, if unaddressed, could lead to subtle but significant inaccuracies in financial reporting. The project team is under immense pressure to meet the launch deadline. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Halt the deployment immediately and initiate a comprehensive investigation into the data anomaly to determine its root cause and impact, followed by remediation before proceeding. Option B. Dismiss the anomaly as a minor issue that will not significantly affect overall system performance or reporting accuracy and proceed with the deployment. Option C. Consult with key stakeholders to quickly implement a workaround for the anomaly without a formal technical investigation to meet the deployment deadline. Option D. Proceed with the deployment as scheduled, with a plan to investigate and address the anomaly in a post-deployment patch. The correct answer is A. Halt the deployment immediately and initiate a comprehensive investigation into the data anomaly to determine its root cause and impact, followed by remediation before proceeding. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between maintaining data integrity and the pressure to deliver a project under tight deadlines. The EDPT electronic data processing test context implies a need for accuracy and reliability in data processing systems, which are foundational to financial operations and regulatory compliance. The ethical dilemma arises when a potential data anomaly, discovered late in the testing phase, could impact the accuracy of the system's output, potentially leading to misstatements or non-compliance if not addressed. Careful judgment is required to balance the urgency of the project launch with the imperative to ensure the system's reliability and the integrity of the data it processes. The correct approach, which involves halting the deployment and thoroughly investigating the anomaly, represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data integrity and regulatory compliance above all else. The EDPT framework, and by extension, the regulatory environment it operates within, mandates that electronic data processing systems must be accurate, reliable, and secure. Failing to address a potential data anomaly before deployment would violate this fundamental principle. It ensures that the system meets its intended purpose without introducing errors that could have significant financial or reputational consequences. This proactive stance aligns with the ethical duty of professionals to act with integrity and competence, safeguarding the interests of the organization and its stakeholders. An incorrect approach that involves proceeding with the deployment, while planning to address the anomaly post-launch, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach disregards the potential for immediate harm caused by inaccurate data. It violates the principle of due diligence and could lead to breaches of regulations that require accurate financial reporting or data handling. Furthermore, it demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility by knowingly deploying a system with a known defect. Another incorrect approach, which is to dismiss the anomaly as insignificant without proper investigation, is also a critical failure. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adhere to the rigorous testing standards expected in electronic data processing. It could lead to the undetected propagation of errors, undermining the credibility of the system, and potentially leading to severe regulatory penalties. This approach prioritizes expediency over accuracy, which is unacceptable in a regulated environment. A third incorrect approach, which is to consult with stakeholders to expedite a workaround without a formal investigation, is problematic because it bypasses the necessary technical and procedural steps for validating data integrity. While collaboration is important, it should not come at the expense of a thorough technical assessment of the anomaly. This approach risks implementing a superficial fix that does not address the root cause, potentially leading to recurring issues and continued noncompliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, identify and document the anomaly. Second, assess its potential impact on data integrity and regulatory compliance. Third, consult relevant technical experts and project managers to understand the nature and scope of the anomaly. Fourth, escalate the issue to appropriate governance or compliance bodies if necessary. Fifth, prioritize a thorough investigation and remediation plan before proceeding with deployment, ensuring that all findings are documented and approved. This systematic process ensures that decisions are informed, ethical, and compliant with regulatory requirements. Question 10. Process analysis reveals a critical bottleneck in the electronic data processing system that is significantly slowing down transaction processing. A junior developer proposes a novel, untested algorithm that they believe will dramatically improve performance. They are eager to implement it immediately in the live production environment to demonstrate its effectiveness and gain recognition. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. The proposed algorithm should be implemented in the live production system without extensive testing, but with a plan to revert to the previous system if significant problems occur. Option B. The proposed algorithm should be thoroughly tested in a controlled development environment, with comprehensive documentation of the changes, risk assessment, and stakeholder approval sought before any deployment to the production system. Option C. The proposed algorithm should be implemented immediately in the live production system, and if any issues arise, they can be addressed retrospectively. Option D. The junior developer should be allowed to implement the new algorithm directly into the live production system, as their enthusiasm and potential for innovation should be encouraged. The correct answer is B. The proposed algorithm should be thoroughly tested in a controlled development environment, with comprehensive documentation of the changes, risk assessment, and stakeholder approval sought before any deployment to the production system. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the desire to improve system efficiency and the imperative to maintain data integrity and security, which are paramount in electronic data processing. The pressure to deliver a solution quickly can lead to shortcuts that bypass established protocols, potentially compromising sensitive information or leading to inaccurate processing. Careful judgment is required to balance innovation with compliance and ethical responsibility. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, documented, and controlled process for implementing changes. This aligns with regulatory frameworks that mandate robust change management, risk assessment, and testing before deploying any modifications to electronic data processing systems. Specifically, it adheres to principles of data integrity, security, and auditability, ensuring that any changes are traceable, validated, and do not introduce vulnerabilities or errors. This methodical approach minimizes the risk of unintended consequences and demonstrates a commitment to responsible data handling. An incorrect approach that involves bypassing formal testing and documentation procedures is professionally unacceptable. This failure directly contravenes regulatory requirements for system validation and change control. Such an approach introduces significant risks of data corruption, system instability, and security breaches, which can lead to financial losses, reputational damage, and regulatory penalties. It also undermines the audit trail, making it impossible to determine the cause of any future issues. Another incorrect approach that involves implementing the change without consulting relevant stakeholders or obtaining necessary approvals is also professionally unsound. This violates principles of good governance and collaboration. It can lead to the deployment of a solution that is incompatible with other systems, does not meet business needs, or creates new security vulnerabilities that were not identified due to a lack of diverse perspectives. This also bypasses crucial risk assessment steps that involve input from various departments. A third incorrect approach that involves making the change in a live production environment without a rollback plan is highly irresponsible. This demonstrates a disregard for business continuity and disaster recovery principles. In the event of an unforeseen issue, the system could become inoperable, causing significant disruption to operations and potentially leading to data loss. The absence of a rollback plan exacerbates the impact of any failure and highlights a lack of preparedness. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core problem or opportunity. This is followed by a comprehensive assessment of potential solutions, including their technical feasibility, security implications, and regulatory compliance. A critical step is to evaluate the risks associated with each solution and to develop mitigation strategies. The chosen solution must then be subjected to rigorous testing, documentation, and stakeholder approval before deployment. Finally, a robust monitoring and evaluation plan should be in place post-implementation. Question 11. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive evaluation of new technologies to ensure they align with data protection mandates and ethical client service standards. A firm is considering implementing an advanced AI-powered data analytics tool to enhance client reporting efficiency. However, concerns have been raised regarding the AI's data handling protocols, potential for algorithmic bias, and the vendor's security certifications. What is the most responsible course of action? Option A. Rely on the vendor's assurances regarding data security and ethical compliance, and proceed with full implementation, focusing solely on the efficiency gains. Option B. Conduct a thorough due diligence process, including a detailed review of the AI tool's data privacy and security features, an assessment of its potential for bias, and verification of vendor compliance with relevant regulation. Before deployment, Option C. Deploy the AI tool but limit its use to non-sensitive client data until further investigation into its capabilities can be completed. Option D. Proceed with the immediate implementation of the AI tool to gain a competitive advantage, assuming the vendor's claims about its security and ethical operation are accurate. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough due diligence process, including a detailed review of the AI tool's data privacy and security features, an assessment of its potential for bias, and verification of vendor compliance with relevant regulations before deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a firm's desire to leverage new technology for efficiency and the paramount duty to protect client data and maintain regulatory compliance. The EDPT framework, as understood within the specified jurisdiction, assuming U.S. regulations for this example, as no specific jurisdiction was provided beyond the exam name, mandates robust data security measures and ethical handling of electronic information. The challenge lies in balancing innovation with the non-negotiable requirements of data privacy and integrity. The correct approach prioritizes a thorough risk assessment and the implementation of appropriate safeguards before deploying new technology. This aligns with regulatory expectations for data processing entities, which often include principles of data minimization, purpose limitation, and security by design. By conducting a comprehensive review of the AI tool's data handling practices, potential vulnerabilities, and compliance with relevant data protection laws, e.g., GLBA, CCPA if applicable, the firm demonstrates a commitment to due diligence and responsible technology adoption. This proactive stance ensures that client data remains protected, confidentiality is maintained, and regulatory obligations are met, thereby upholding professional integrity and client trust. An incorrect approach would involve the immediate adoption of the AI tool without adequate vetting. This failure to assess risks and implement controls directly contravenes regulatory requirements for data security and privacy. Specifically, it could lead to breaches of confidentiality, unauthorized data access, or the misuse of sensitive client information, all of which carry significant legal and reputational consequences. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on the vendor's assurances without independent verification. Regulatory frameworks often place the onus on the data processor to ensure third-party compliance, making blind trust a significant ethical and regulatory lapse. Finally, ignoring potential biases within the AI tool, which could lead to discriminatory outcomes in data processing, would also represent a failure to adhere to ethical principles and potentially anti-discrimination laws. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with identifying the ethical and regulatory implications of any proposed technological change. This involves consulting relevant policies, laws, and professional guidelines. A risk-based approach, where potential harms are systematically identified and mitigated, is crucial. Seeking expert advice, particularly in areas of data security and legal compliance, is also a key component of responsible decision-making. Transparency with stakeholders, where appropriate, and a commitment to ongoing monitoring and evaluation of new technologies are essential for maintaining ethical standards and regulatory adherence. Question 12. The monitoring system demonstrates a consistent increase in data processing latency over the past quarter, impacting the timeliness of critical alerts. Initial observations suggest that the volume of incoming data has doubled during this period, but the system's processing capacity appears to have remained static. What is the most appropriate initial step to address this performance degradation? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive performance profiling of the system to identify specific bottlenecks in data ingestion, processing, or retrieval. Option B. Temporarily disable non-essential monitoring functions to free up system resources. Option C. Immediately upgrade the server hardware to double its processing power to match the increased data volume. Option D. Implement a data compression algorithm across all incoming data streams to reduce the processing load. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive performance profiling of the system to identify specific bottlenecks in data ingestion, processing, or retrieval. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in electronic data processing, identifying and rectifying performance bottlenecks within a critical monitoring system. The professional challenge lies in accurately diagnosing the root cause of the observed latency and selecting an optimization strategy that is both effective and compliant with established EDPT principles and any applicable regulatory guidelines for data processing integrity and system availability. The urgency implied by a monitoring system suggests that delays can have significant downstream consequences, demanding a swift yet thorough approach. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on a systematic, data-driven investigation of the system's architecture and data flow. This involves profiling the system's components, identifying specific processes or queries that are consuming excessive resources or introducing delays, and then implementing targeted optimizations. This aligns with EDPT best practices for process optimization, which prioritize understanding the existing workflow before making changes. It ensures that optimizations are addressing actual issues, minimizing the risk of introducing new problems or negatively impacting other system functions. This methodical approach also supports auditability and compliance, as the rationale for changes can be clearly documented and traced back to performance metrics. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach might involve making broad, unverified changes to system configurations or code based on initial assumptions without proper diagnosis. This risks introducing new performance issues, destabilizing the system, or even causing data corruption, which would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure under EDPT guidelines concerning data integrity and system reliability. Another incorrect approach could be to simply increase hardware resources, e.g., more powerful servers, without understanding the underlying software or data processing inefficiencies. This is often a costly and ineffective solution, as it doesn't address the root cause and may violate principles of efficient resource utilization, a key consideration in electronic data processing. A third incorrect approach might be to ignore the latency, assuming it is within acceptable tolerances without proper validation. This failure to proactively address performance degradation can lead to system failures, data loss, or noncompliance with service-level agreements, representing a failure in professional duty of care and potentially violating regulations that mandate system availability and performance monitoring. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach process optimization by first establishing clear performance baselines and metrics. They should then employ diagnostic tools to gather data on system behavior. Based on this data, a hypothesis about the bottleneck should be formed and tested through targeted interventions. Each change should be implemented in a controlled manner, with thorough testing and validation before full deployment. This iterative, evidence-based approach ensures that optimizations are effective, efficient, and maintain system integrity, thereby upholding professional standards and regulatory compliance. Question 13. Governance review demonstrates that the current electronic data processing (EDPT) system for transaction reconciliation is experiencing significant performance bottlenecks, leading to delays in reporting and increased operational costs. The IT department proposes a rapid implementation of a new algorithmic approach to streamline the reconciliation process, aiming to reduce processing time by 40% within the next quarter. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory expectations for managing critical financial data processing systems and ensuring process optimization? Option A. Defer the optimization until a complete system overhaul can be undertaken, as any piecemeal changes to critical EDPT systems are inherently too risky and likely to introduce unforeseen compliance issues. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of the proposed algorithmic approach, evaluating its effect on data integrity, security, and compliance with all relevant EDPT regulations, followed by a phased implementation with rigorous testing and stakeholder sign-off. Option C. Implement the new algorithmic approach immediately after a preliminary technical review, prioritizing speed to achieve cost savings and reporting efficiency, with post-implementation validation to follow. Option D. Focus on increasing hardware resources for the existing EDPT system to alleviate performance bottlenecks, as this approach avoids modifying the core processing logic and thus minimizes regulatory risk. The correct answer is C. Implement the new algorithmic approach immediately after a preliminary technical review, prioritizing speed to achieve cost savings and reporting efficiency, with post-implementation validation to follow. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the EDPT, as a critical system for financial data processing, is subject to stringent regulatory oversight. The challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient process optimization with the absolute imperative of maintaining data integrity, security, and compliance with all applicable regulations. Any optimization effort must be rigorously assessed against these foundational requirements. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, risk-based methodology that aligns with regulatory expectations for IT system management and data processing. By conducting a thorough impact assessment involving relevant stakeholders and ensuring that all changes are documented and tested against regulatory requirements, the organization demonstrates a commitment to compliance and operational resilience. This proactive and controlled approach minimizes the risk of introducing vulnerabilities or non-compliance issues that could lead to regulatory sanctions, financial penalties, or reputational damage. It adheres to principles of good governance and risk management, which are implicitly or explicitly mandated by regulatory frameworks governing electronic data processing in financial services. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed of implementation without adequate risk assessment and stakeholder consultation would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such an approach could lead to the introduction of data integrity issues, security breaches, or non-compliance with reporting obligations, all of which are serious violations. For example, bypassing proper testing protocols could result in incorrect data being processed or reported, directly contravening regulations that mandate accurate and timely financial reporting. Similarly, failing to involve compliance or security teams could lead to the implementation of processes that inadvertently expose sensitive data, violating data protection laws and regulations. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the regulatory landscape. Clearly identify all relevant regulations and guidelines pertaining to electronic data processing, data integrity, and system security. 2. Assess the proposed optimization. Evaluate the potential benefits and risks of the optimization, specifically in relation to regulatory compliance and data integrity. 3. Stakeholder engagement. Involve all relevant parties, including IT, compliance, risk management, and business units, to ensure a comprehensive understanding of impacts and requirements. 4. Develop a phased implementation plan. Outline a clear plan that includes rigorous testing, validation, and rollback procedures. 5. Document everything. Maintain detailed records of all assessments, decisions, testing, and implementation steps. 6. Continuous monitoring. Establish mechanisms for ongoing monitoring of the optimized processes to ensure continued compliance and performance. Question 14. Comparative studies suggest that optimizing electronic data processing systems can significantly enhance operational efficiency. Considering the EDPT role in financial data processing within the specified regulatory jurisdiction, which of the following approaches to process optimization would best align with regulatory requirements and professional best practices? Option A. Prioritizing the reduction of processing times by modifying core EDPT functionalities without conducting a formal impact assessment or seeking regulatory approval for the changes. Option B. Focusing on cost-cutting measures by consolidating EDPT infrastructure and reducing data validation checks to minimize operational overhead. Option C. Implementing a phased approach that begins with a comprehensive audit of the current EDPT compliance posture and performance metrics, followed by targeted improvements based on identified risks and opportunities, all within a documented change management framework. Option D. Rapidly deploying cutting-edge automation tools to streamline workflows, assuming that technological advancement inherently leads to improved compliance and efficiency. The correct answer is C. Implementing a phased approach that begins with a comprehensive audit of the current EDPT compliance posture and performance metrics, followed by targeted improvements based on identified risks and opportunities, all within a documented change management framework. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the EDPT, as a critical system for processing financial data, directly impacts regulatory compliance and operational efficiency. The need for process optimization, while beneficial, must be balanced against the stringent requirements of the EDPT regulatory framework. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any changes do not compromise data integrity, security, or the ability to meet reporting obligations under the specified jurisdiction's laws. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the existing EDPT regulatory compliance and operational performance before proposing any changes. This involves detailed analysis of current workflows, identification of bottlenecks, and assessment of potential risks associated with modifications. Adhering to the established change management protocols, which typically include impact assessments, testing, and stakeholder approval, is crucial for maintaining compliance with the relevant financial regulations. This methodical approach ensures that optimization efforts enhance efficiency without introducing new compliance risks or disrupting critical business functions. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on implementing new technologies without a comprehensive review of existing regulatory requirements would be professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a disregard for the specific laws governing electronic data processing in the financial sector, potentially leading to breaches of data privacy, security vulnerabilities, or non-compliance with reporting standards. Another incorrect approach, which involves bypassing established change control procedures in the name of speed, would also be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Such actions undermine the integrity of the EDPT system and expose the organization to penalties for noncompliance with internal policies and external regulations designed to ensure system reliability and data accuracy. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the regulatory landscape governing the EDPT. This involves consulting relevant statutes, guidelines, and internal policies. Next, a comprehensive assessment of the current state of the EDPT, including its performance metrics and compliance status, is necessary. Proposed optimizations should then be evaluated against both efficiency gains and their potential impact on regulatory adherence and risk. Finally, any changes must be implemented through a controlled and documented process, with thorough testing and validation to ensure continued compliance and operational stability. Question 15. Assessment of process optimization strategies for an electronic data processing system requires careful consideration of multiple factors. Which of the following approaches best represents a responsible and compliant method for enhancing processing efficiency? Option A. Implementing changes that demonstrably improve processing speed and reduce resource utilization, following a documented risk assessment that confirms no adverse impact on data integrity or security. Option B. Prioritizing any process change that offers a noticeable reduction in processing time, with the understanding that any minor data discrepancies can be addressed post-implementation. Option C. Automating data handling steps based on readily available scripts, without a formal review of their impact on data validation rules or access controls. Option D. Adopting the latest technological advancements that promise significant speed improvements, assuming that newer systems inherently offer better security and accuracy. Correct answer is A. Implementing changes that demonstrably improve processing speed and reduce resource utilization, following a documented risk assessment that confirms no adverse impact on data integrity or security. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in electronic data processing environments, balancing the need for efficient data processing with the imperative to maintain data integrity and security. The pressure to deliver results quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise these critical aspects. Professionals must exercise sound judgment to identify and implement process optimizations that enhance efficiency without introducing unacceptable risks. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, risk-based evaluation of proposed process changes. This aligns with regulatory expectations for data handling, which often mandate that changes are assessed for their impact on data accuracy, completeness, and security. By prioritizing changes that demonstrably improve efficiency while mitigating or eliminating risks, professionals adhere to principles of due diligence and responsible data management. This approach ensures that technological advancements serve to strengthen, rather than weaken, the integrity of the electronic data processing system, thereby upholding trust and compliance. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing changes solely based on perceived efficiency gains without a thorough risk assessment is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This overlooks potential vulnerabilities that could lead to data corruption, unauthorized access, or system downtime, all of which can have severe compliance implications. Prioritizing speed over accuracy or security directly contravenes the principles of data integrity and confidentiality, which are foundational to electronic data processing regulations. Furthermore, adopting solutions without considering their long-term maintainability or scalability can lead to technical debt and future compliance issues. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured decision-making process when evaluating process optimizations. This involves 1. Identifying the objective, clearly define the desired efficiency improvement. 2. Assessing current state, understand the existing process and its inherent risks. 3. Proposing solutions, brainstorm potential optimizations. 4. Evaluating impact. For each proposed solution, analyze its potential benefits, efficiency and risks, data integrity, security, compliance, scalability, maintainability. 5. Prioritizing. Select solutions that offer the greatest net benefit with a strong emphasis on risk mitigation. 6. Documenting. Maintain records of the evaluation and decision-making process for audit and review. 7. Implementing and monitoring. Deploy changes carefully and continuously monitor their performance and impact. Question 16. When evaluating potential process optimization strategies for the electronic data processing test (EDPT) system, which approach best balances the need for improved efficiency with the imperative of maintaining data integrity and adhering to regulatory frameworks governing electronic data processing? Option A. Prioritizing the fastest optimization methods to achieve immediate efficiency gains, with a plan to address any data integrity or regulatory concerns retrospectively. Option B. Implementing optimizations in a phased manner, with each phase undergoing comprehensive testing and validation against EDPT data processing standards and relevant regulatory guidelines before proceeding to the next. Option C. Focusing solely on algorithmic improvements that demonstrably reduce processing time, assuming that faster processing inherently implies better data handling. Option D. Deploying optimizations directly into the live EDPT environment to minimize downtime and observe performance in real time, relying on post-implementation monitoring to detect issues. The correct answer is B. Implementing optimizations in a phased manner, with each phase undergoing comprehensive testing and validation against EDPT data processing standards and relevant regulatory guidelines before proceeding to the next. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for system efficiency with the long-term implications of data integrity and regulatory compliance. The EDPT, as a critical system, is subject to stringent data processing regulations. A hasty optimization that overlooks these requirements can lead to significant compliance breaches, data corruption, and reputational damage. The correct approach, focusing on a phased implementation with rigorous testing and validation against EDPT-established data processing protocols and relevant regulatory guidelines, represents best professional practice. This method ensures that process optimization does not compromise the accuracy, completeness, and security of the data handled by the EDPT. Adherence to these protocols is a direct reflection of compliance with data processing regulations, which mandate that systems maintain data integrity and auditability. This approach demonstrates a commitment to responsible data management and operational excellence, aligning with the ethical duty to protect sensitive information and maintain system reliability. An incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thorough validation risks violating data integrity principles. This could manifest as data loss, incorrect processing, or the introduction of biases, all of which are directly contrary to regulatory requirements for accurate and reliable data handling. Another incorrect approach, which involves bypassing established change control procedures for optimization, represents a significant ethical and regulatory failure. Such actions undermine the audit trail, making it impossible to trace system changes and their impact on data, which is a fundamental requirement for regulatory compliance and risk management. Furthermore, it demonstrates a disregard for established governance and security protocols, potentially exposing the organization to data breaches or unauthorized access. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of the EDPT operational requirements and the applicable regulatory landscape. This involves identifying potential optimization strategies, then systematically evaluating each against the dual criteria of efficiency gains and compliance adherence. A risk assessment should be conducted for each strategy, prioritizing those that offer clear benefits with minimal compliance risk. The process should always involve stakeholder consultation, thorough documentation, and adherence to established change management and testing procedures. This structured approach ensures that optimizations are not only effective, but also legally sound and ethically responsible. Question 17. The evaluation methodology shows a proposed change to the electronic data processing system aimed at significantly reducing batch processing times. This change involves streamlining data validation checks and automating certain reconciliation steps. While the projected time savings are substantial, the proposed methodology lacks detailed documentation on how the integrity and accuracy of the processed data will be maintained during these automated steps, and it does not include a comprehensive rollback plan in case of unforeseen data discrepancies. Which of the following represents the most professionally responsible approach to evaluating and implementing this proposed change? Option A. Prioritize the cost savings associated with the reduced processing time and assume that the existing, albeit streamlined, validation checks will be sufficient to maintain data accuracy. Option B. Implement the proposed change immediately to realize the efficiency gains and address any data integrity issues that may arise retrospectively. Option C. Conduct a thorough impact assessment, develop detailed validation and reconciliation procedures for the automated steps, establish robust testing protocols, and create a comprehensive rollback strategy before implementation. Option D. Defer the implementation of the proposed change indefinitely due to the perceived complexity of ensuring data integrity with automated processes, thereby maintaining the status quo. Correct answer is B. Implement the proposed change immediately to realize the efficiency gains and address any data integrity issues that may arise retrospectively. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in balancing the drive for efficiency with the imperative of maintaining data integrity and compliance within the EDPT framework. The core tension lies in optimizing electronic data processing without compromising the accuracy, security, and auditability of the data, which are paramount under regulatory oversight. Careful judgment is required to discern between genuine process improvements and those that introduce unacceptable risks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, risk-based evaluation of proposed changes. This involves thorough testing, validation, and documentation, ensuring that any optimization aligns with EDPT requirements for data accuracy, completeness, and security. Adherence to established change management protocols, including impact assessments and rollback plans, is crucial for maintaining operational stability and regulatory compliance. This methodical approach minimizes the likelihood of introducing errors or vulnerabilities into the data processing system, thereby upholding the integrity of the electronic data. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on speed without considering validation introduces significant regulatory and ethical failures. It risks data corruption, inaccurate reporting, and potential breaches of data privacy or security, all of which are direct violations of EDPT principles and associated regulations. Another incorrect approach that bypasses documentation and testing undermines auditability and accountability. This makes it impossible to demonstrate compliance or to troubleshoot issues effectively, leading to potential regulatory sanctions and loss of trust. A third incorrect approach that prioritizes cost savings over robust security measures creates vulnerabilities that could lead to data breaches, violating data protection laws and ethical obligations to safeguard sensitive information. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific EDPT requirements and the potential impact of any proposed process change. This involves consulting relevant policies, conducting thorough risk assessments, and engaging with stakeholders. The decision should be guided by a principle of least harm and maximum assurance, ensuring that optimizations enhance efficiency without compromising data integrity or regulatory adherence. A structured change management process, including pilot testing and post-implementation reviews, is essential for informed and responsible decision-making. Question 18. Operational review demonstrates that the current electronic data processing workflow for customer transaction reconciliation is experiencing significant delays, impacting reporting timelines. Which of the following approaches would best address this issue while adhering to best professional practices and regulatory expectations for data integrity and operational efficiency? Option A. Rely solely on the vendor's recommendations for optimizing the current software, without conducting an independent internal assessment of the process or validating the proposed changes against regulatory requirements. Option B. Conduct a detailed analysis of the existing workflow, identifying specific bottlenecks, redundant steps, and areas for automation, and then propose targeted, data-driven improvements with thorough testing before full implementation. Option C. Implement changes based on informal feedback from a few team members who believe they know where the delays originate, without formal process mapping or data analysis. Option D. Immediately implement a completely new, unproven reconciliation software package that promises faster processing, without a thorough evaluation of its compatibility with existing systems or its impact on data integrity. The correct answer is B. Conduct a detailed analysis of the existing workflow, identifying specific bottlenecks, redundant steps, and areas for automation, and then propose targeted, data-driven improvements with thorough testing before full implementation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in electronic data processing environments, identifying and rectifying inefficiencies in data processing workflows. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for speed and accuracy with resource constraints and regulatory compliance. A hasty or ill-considered optimization can lead to unintended consequences, such as data integrity issues, increased operational risk, or non-compliance with data handling regulations. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both effective and sustainable. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on a systematic, data-driven analysis of the existing process. This involves mapping the current workflow, identifying bottlenecks and redundant steps, and then proposing targeted improvements based on empirical evidence. This aligns with best professional practices in process optimization, which emphasize understanding the as-is state before designing the to-be state. From a regulatory perspective, such a methodical approach ensures that any changes made do not inadvertently violate data integrity requirements or introduce new vulnerabilities that could lead to breaches or misreporting, which are critical under electronic data processing regulations. It promotes transparency and auditability of the optimization process itself. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing changes based solely on anecdotal evidence or the perceived urgency of a problem without thorough analysis is professionally unsound. This approach risks introducing new, unforeseen issues or failing to address the root cause of the inefficiency. From a regulatory standpoint, Making significant changes to data processing without proper documentation and validation could be seen as a failure to maintain adequate controls over electronic systems, potentially violating regulations that mandate robust internal controls and audit trails. Adopting a Big Bang approach, where a complete overhaul is attempted without phased implementation or testing, is also problematic. This significantly increases the risk of widespread system failure or data corruption. Such a drastic measure, if not meticulously planned and executed, could lead to a breach of data security or integrity, attracting regulatory scrutiny and penalties. It demonstrates a lack of risk management and a disregard for the stability of critical data processing operations. Relying on external consultants without internal validation or understanding of the existing system's intricacies can lead to solutions that are not practical or sustainable for the organization. While external expertise can be valuable, the ultimate responsibility for data processing integrity and compliance rests internally. Without internal oversight and validation, the organization might adopt solutions that, while theoretically sound, do not fit the specific operational context or meet regulatory requirements, leading to potential compliance gaps. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing process optimization challenges should adopt a structured, iterative approach. This begins with a comprehensive understanding of the current process, including its inputs, outputs, and dependencies. Data collection and analysis are paramount to identify specific areas for improvement. Proposed solutions should be evaluated for their impact on data integrity, security, and regulatory compliance. Pilot testing and phased implementation are crucial to mitigate risks. Continuous monitoring and evaluation after implementation are necessary to ensure the optimization achieves its intended goals and remains compliant. This systematic methodology ensures that improvements are effective, efficient, and adhere to all relevant regulatory and ethical standards. Question 19. Upon reviewing the proposed upgrade for the firm's core electronic data processing system, which is critical for client transaction processing and regulatory reporting, a data processing specialist identifies several potential approaches. The primary objectives of the upgrade are to enhance system performance, improve data security, and streamline operational workflows. The specialist must consider the implications of each approach in relation to U.S. regulatory compliance and ethical data handling practices. Which of the following approaches best balances these objectives while adhering to professional standards? Option A. Proceed with the upgrade immediately using the most cost-effective vendor solution, assuming that the vendor's standard security measures are sufficient for regulatory compliance. Option B. Deploy the new system across all departments simultaneously to minimize the duration of any potential disruption, relying on the IT department's internal testing to ensure functionality. Option C. Prioritize the upgrade's performance enhancements above all else, deferring comprehensive security testing and stakeholder consultations until after the system is fully operational. Option D. Implement the upgrade in phases, conducting thorough user acceptance testing and security audits at each stage, and maintaining open communication channels with all affected business units and senior management throughout the process. The correct answer is D. Implement the upgrade in phases, conducting thorough user acceptance testing and security audits at each stage, and maintaining open communication channels with all affected business units and senior management throughout the process. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a data processing specialist within a financial institution regulated by U.S. frameworks. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for system upgrades to enhance efficiency and security with the potential for disruption to critical business operations, and the imperative to comply with data privacy regulations. The specialist must navigate the complexities of system implementation, stakeholder communication, and regulatory adherence without compromising data integrity or client trust. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that minimizes risk and maximizes benefit, while upholding all legal and ethical obligations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach, which involves a phased implementation of the electronic data processing system upgrade with comprehensive testing and clear communication protocols, represents best professional practice. This method aligns with regulatory requirements for data integrity and security, such as those mandated by the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, and the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, SOX, which emphasize robust internal controls and risk management. A phased rollout allows for meticulous testing at each stage, ensuring that data is processed accurately and securely, and that the system meets all functional and compliance requirements before full deployment. Clear communication protocols with all stakeholders, including management, IT security, and affected business units, are crucial for managing expectations, addressing concerns proactively, and ensuring a smooth transition, thereby minimizing operational disruption and maintaining client confidence. This approach demonstrates a commitment to due diligence and responsible data management, which are fundamental ethical and regulatory expectations. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing the upgrade without thorough testing and a phased rollout would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach risks data corruption, security breaches, and operational downtime, directly contravening the spirit and letter of regulations like GLBA, which mandates safeguarding customer information. It also violates ethical principles of professional responsibility and due care. Prioritizing immediate cost savings by selecting the cheapest vendor without a comprehensive evaluation of their security protocols and compliance with U.S. data processing standards is another critical failure. This overlooks the regulatory obligations under laws like the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA, if applicable, or general data protection principles that require due diligence in third-party vendor selection. It demonstrates a lack of risk assessment and a disregard for the potential financial and reputational damage resulting from a non-compliant or insecure vendor. Proceeding with the upgrade solely based on the IT department's recommendation, without consulting or informing other affected business units or senior management, represents a failure in stakeholder management and internal control. This can lead to unforeseen operational disruptions, resistance to adoption, and a lack of accountability, all of which are antithetical to the principles of good governance and regulatory compliance. It also fails to acknowledge the broader impact on business processes and client service, which are implicitly protected by regulatory frameworks. Professional reasoning. Professionals in electronic data processing must adopt a risk-based approach to system implementation. This involves identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities, assessing their impact, and implementing controls to mitigate them. A structured project management methodology, incorporating thorough planning, rigorous testing, phased deployment, and continuous monitoring, is essential. Effective communication and collaboration with all stakeholders are paramount to ensure alignment, manage expectations, and facilitate a successful transition. Adherence to relevant U.S. regulatory frameworks, such as GLBA, SOX, and any specific data privacy laws applicable to the institution's operations, must be a guiding principle throughout the entire process. Professionals should always err on the side of caution when it comes to data security and integrity, prioritizing compliance and risk mitigation over speed or cost alone. Question 20. During the evaluation of a new electronic data processing test, system's readiness for deployment, what approach best ensures both operational functionality and adherence to data integrity standards? Option A. Accepting the system's documentation as a complete substitute for independent data processing logic verification, assuming the vendor's claims are accurate. Option B. Expediting the deployment process by relying primarily on the vendor's assurance of system functionality and conducting only minimal user-driven testing. Option C. Implementing a phased validation strategy that includes rigorous testing of data input, transformation, and output against predefined business rules and regulatory requirements, followed by comprehensive user acceptance testing. Option D. Deferring detailed data validation until after the system has been live for a period, focusing initially on user interface and basic transaction processing. The correct answer is C. Implementing a phased validation strategy that includes rigorous testing of data input, transformation, and output against predefined business rules and regulatory requirements, followed by comprehensive user acceptance testing. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for system functionality with the long-term implications of data integrity and regulatory compliance. The pressure to deliver a working system quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise data quality, which in turn can have significant financial and legal repercussions. The as a critical component of electronic data processing, directly impacts the accuracy and reliability of financial and operational information. Ensuring its proper implementation and ongoing maintenance is paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a thorough, phased validation process that includes comprehensive testing of data input, processing, and output mechanisms. This aligns with regulatory expectations for robust internal controls and data governance. Specifically, it reflects the principles of data integrity, accuracy, and completeness, which are fundamental to financial reporting and operational efficiency. By systematically verifying that the EDPT correctly handles data according to defined business rules and regulatory requirements, the organization mitigates the risk of errors, fraud, and noncompliance. This proactive approach ensures that the system not only functions but does so reliably and in accordance with all applicable laws and guidelines. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves prioritizing speed of deployment over thorough testing. This directly violates the principle of due diligence and can lead to the introduction of undetected errors into critical data streams. Such errors could result in inaccurate financial statements, flawed business decisions, and potential regulatory penalties for misrepresentation or failure to maintain accurate records. This approach demonstrates a disregard for data integrity, a core tenet of electronic data processing, and a common regulatory focus. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on user acceptance testing, without independent verification of the EDPT core logic and data handling capabilities. While user acceptance is important, it may not uncover systemic issues related to data transformation, error handling, or compliance with underlying regulations. This oversight can lead to a system that appears to function from a user's perspective, but fails to meet the stringent data accuracy and reporting standards mandated by regulatory bodies. It represents a failure to implement adequate internal controls and validation procedures. A third incorrect approach is to assume that the EDPT vendor-provided documentation is sufficient for validation without conducting independent testing. Vendor documentation may not fully capture the specific implementation nuances or the organization's unique regulatory environment. Relying solely on this can lead to a false sense of security and the potential for misinterpretation of system capabilities, resulting in data processing errors that could have significant compliance implications. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to EDPT implementation and validation. This involves identifying critical data elements and processing functions, assessing the potential impact of errors, and designing testing strategies that provide a high degree of assurance regarding data integrity and regulatory compliance. A structured testing methodology, including unit testing, integration testing, system testing, and user acceptance testing, coupled with independent verification of data handling logic against business rules and regulatory requirements, is essential. Continuous monitoring and periodic revalidation are also crucial to maintain data quality and compliance over the system's lifecycle.